The real solution to racism is to change social attitudes, individual and social attitudes. And this takes time and effort. Legislation can play a role. Laws may not by themselves make people get along with one another or like one another. But laws can signal what our society considers right or wrong and nudge people over time to behave better. Today we have various laws dealing with serious racial offenses, like hate crime or causing racial enmity. But these laws are scattered in different places, like the Penal Code and the Sedition Act, and they focus purely on crimes and punishments rather than persuasion and rehabilitation. We intend to pass specific legislation on racial harmony. We will call it the Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act. And it will collect together in one place all the government's power to deal with racial issues. It will also incorporate some softer and gentler touches. For example, the power to order someone who has caused offense to stop doing it and to make amends by learning more about the other race and mending ties with them. And this softer approach will heal hurt instead of leaving resentment. And if he complies and does it, that's good, we move on. If he doesn't comply or continues to do wrong things, of course, legal consequences follow. We already have a similar law for religious harmony. It is the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act. We've had it for 30 plus years. We've never needed to invoke any of the punishments under this act. But just the existence of the law has had a salutary effect. It has helped to restrain intolerance and promote religious harmony. And similarly, a Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act will encourage moderation and tolerance between different racial groups. It will signal the overriding importance of racial harmony to Singapore. Besides pushing against discrimination and racist attitudes, we also need to keep our policies on race and religion up to date. Because racial and religious harmony is not just delicate, but also dynamic. It changes over time. Our values and beliefs as a society shift over time. Each new generation has its own perspective on racial issues. Older Singaporeans lived through Singapore's independence journey. They think discussions can become disputes, disputes can become quarrels. Better don't talk about such things too much. Younger Singaporeans didn't personally experience the racial tensions and riots of our early years. Their living experience has been largely racial peace and harmony. They believe we are mature and stable now. We want to improve the status quo. We must talk about racial and religious issues more openly and relook our policies and assumptions afresh. These generational differences in views are perfectly understandable and should be accommodated. That's within Singapore. Meanwhile, the world around us is changing. Singapore is highly exposed to external political developments. We are affected by the Black Lives Matter movement in the US, or the violence between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza. Our own circumstances and contexts are completely different, and these are not our quarrels, but they do affect our people. We are influenced by external religious trends too. Many Christians think of themselves as members of a worldwide communion. Similarly, Muslims consider themselves to belong to a global ummah. So when religious norms elsewhere shift, norms and practices in Singapore are also affected. Therefore, from time to time, we must adjust our policies on race and religion. But we should adjust based on our own needs and circumstances and not just because of trends abroad. And we should do so with caution, because race and religion will always be highly sensitive issues. We have to take the time to discuss respectfully, make sure everybody understands, and build a consensus before we make any move.